Hey everyone, can you guys hear me? Let me know if you guys can hear me in the chat so we know that things are up and running. So, as many of you know, today is, essentially marking the dawn of a new era for Bitcoin, going from our second halving to our third one. And this halving, as we've talked about before, we're not expecting a whole lot to occur in the short term, but I do think it will mark the dawn of this new bull run over the next, say, several years. And one of the things I wanted to talk about was the fair valuation of the price of Bitcoin. So, if you have not looked at this website before, one of the fans of the channel made it for me. So just go to intothecryptocharts.com. HTTPS. You can actually do HTTPS and get the secure connection. But intothecryptocharts.com, and you will see what we have is non-bubble logarithmic regression. So, what this is, if you are unfamiliar with the channel, is it's essentially taking this, non-bubble data. So this data in the regions that were not considered to be in a speculative bubble. And right now, we're not considered to be in a speculative bubble. The bubbles, whether they're sometimes mini bubbles or larger bubbles that, go above the primary regression band, 10 to 30x, these are the bubbles where you want to be taking profits. And when we're in this band is where, historically speaking, you want to be purchasing Bitcoin. This is not financial advice. This is just, looking at the long-term mathematics behind it. Now, what's interesting, I fit this equation a while ago. I fit it when we had this data here. It has not been refit over here at all. If you go back in time and fit, say, just this data, obviously it would predict, say, $1 million Bitcoin in 2017. If you were to, say, fit this data, it would predict it sooner. So there's some merit to refitting at each market cycle. But what's interesting is that if you look at the halvings, so the halvings are the dashed lines. So you see these dashed lines. So we have each halving going all the way back to the first halving back in 2012. We have the halving in 2016, and then now we have the halving in 2020. Now, what's interesting is if you look at what the price of Bitcoin was doing, what was the price of Bitcoin doing at the halving? Well, look, the price was essentially the exact fair valuation that you would get by fitting this to non-bubble data. I did not manipulate this in any way. It was just taking somewhat discretionary, I guess you could say, non-bubble data, and then just fitting it to the equation. And you can fit it yourself if you want. It's just 10 to the power a, and all this is in parentheses, times the ln of x minus b. And you can fit that data, and you'll probably get a fairly similar fit if you were to do so. And you'll notice that each time we were at the halving, the price was identically what the fair valuation was. So back in 2012, you can see that the price at the time was around $12, and the non-bubble price was around $12, so off by about 20 cents. In 2016, the price at the halving was around $600, and it's hard to get it exactly, around $600 or so. And what was the non-bubble price? It was also around $600. Again, we made a video a few weeks ago looking at, okay, well, what is the fair valuation at the halving? This was before the move to 10K. And we noted that the fair valuation of Bitcoin at the halving, if you go and look at the primary regression band, is around $8,300 to $8,400. So the people, like I see in the chat, saying $1,000 is the bottom, what you're essentially saying is that the price is going to go from here all the way down here, which I'm not saying it can't happen, but the probability of something like that happening is very low. I'm not a huge believer in the full hyperwave theory of it going all the way back down to $1,000. If you look at the lower, so we know what the fair valuation is. We look at the primary regression band, we can say, okay, well, at present time, the fair valuation, according to the logarithmic regression fit to non-bubble data, is around $8,300 to $8,400. And if you look at the price of Bitcoin right now, it's actually around $8,400. A 15% drop from 10K, it's irrelevant. Remember, we're staying focused on this channel. We're not calling for $100,000 Bitcoin by 2020 or even 2021. The evidence is there to definitively suggest that we are more than likely witnessing lengthening cycles. And because of this, we don't expect a huge move this year. And what we would likely expect, if you want my personal opinion, not that my personal opinion on say the fair valuation of, or what the price of Bitcoin might be at any point in time over the next year, is somewhat irrelevant because no one really knows what's going to happen. But I imagine we're going to be somewhat range bound, probably lower than a few, maybe 10,000, 12,000, but we're not going to be going too much higher. I don't think we're going to be breaking an all-time high this year. I see us mostly range bound for the rest of this year between, our local high and our local bottom. So bearish scenario, the most bearish scenario would be dropping back down to the 300-week moving average, which would put us around probably around $3,900 or so. But remember, this was just a wick on a single day, and so I wouldn't put too much credence into that. The 200-week moving average is historically a great place, in my opinion, to have buys. And I see people saying, "Is this pre-recorded?" This is not pre-recorded. This is live. So if I make a mistake, feel free to call me out on it. There's a lot of people. Obviously, there's a lot of people streaming the halving right now. A lot of good streams going on. I just thought I'd put one up because I wanted to reiterate the fact that, again, if you look at the fair valuation at the halving, it's essentially right around where the price is. So around $8,300 to $8,400 would basically be the same percent difference, in a sense, between all the prices of the prices at other or past halvings and what the non-bubble prices would have suggested. You can see the last one was around $600. The one before that, it was around $13. So $13 to $600 to $8,000. And then the next one will probably be somewhere around $40,000, maybe $50,000 or so. And that would be, 4 years from now. But remember, these models aren't, they're not just magic. We will want to take into account more data as it comes in. Not that I expect the regression band to change significantly with another fitting. And by the way, I have not refit this. I fit it one time back in a year or two ago, and I have not refit it since then. So please consider that, if I were to ever refit it, the purpose would not be to significantly change the regression band. It would just be to subtly tweak it so that it can help us predict, say, a speculative bubble in the next market cycle, not the present one that we're about to experience over, say, the next 3 years. So I think in the short term, this regression band is going to be very accurate in determining a lower bound region and when we're going into a speculative bubble sometime over in this time frame. So essentially where I'm looking at is around August of 2023 seems to be the most likely, with a 6 to 8 month tolerance on when exactly the peak might be. I think the evidence suggests that going into the next halving, that we'll actually see, instead of being the catalyst for a multi-year bull run, the next halving will more than likely be a way to stop the bleeding from the next bear market. So consider that as a way to look at the market, that most people aren't really thinking about. They think of the halving as only something that fuels a bull run. But if you look at the halving, after the first halving, the price went parabolic almost immediately. After the second halving, it took several months before we started any real uptrend. And once we did, then we did go parabolic over the next year. So after this current halving, I would anticipate us staying between this range here, at least for the next year or so. And if we do that, if we were to stay in this region, you can see that the fair valuation of Bitcoin, I've told people that I think that that the next bubble, the next time that we might get to a new all-time high would be potentially the end of 2021, maybe the beginning of 2022. It could, obviously it could happen before that. There's no guarantees of when it might happen. But if it were to happen at the end of 2021 or say the beginning of 2022, it would actually correspond to the fair valuation of Bitcoin at the time. It would not be a bubble in a sense. And why is that relevant? Well, if you look at the last market cycle, or say the one from 2013, the peak was around $1,100. If you go sideways, we reached $1,100 while we were still in the primary regression band. So despite the fact that once upon a time $1,100 was a speculative bubble, you fast forward a few years, and then that one speculative bubble is now our within our primary regression band. And then moving forward again, you can see, back in December of 2017, the bubble that we saw was around $20,000. The time it'll take to get to a fair valuation of $20,000, so going sideways all the way over, is going to put us at the end of 2021 or say 2022, beginning of 2022. So this is something I would like people to consider. I'll go ahead and link you guys the website here in the chat if you're having trouble accessing it. But it should be working. So this is the primary thing in terms of thinking about, okay, when are we going to get to $20,000? I would just say look to the right, and this would be our primary support region in terms of getting to $20,000. And it's once we get to this previous all-time high that will likely send us out of this regression band into a bubble that will likely peak in 2023. Now, we're getting closer to the halving. We're about a half hour away. So this is going to be, a very exciting time. Obviously, in terms of price, it might not be exciting, but if you're watching this now, then you can at least say, I was into Bitcoin prior to the 2020 halving, which is probably going to carry a bit of weight to it in another decade or so when more and more people start moving into the market. So again, the fair valuation that we would expect at the halving, because it has happened every time so far, is around $8,300 to $8,400, and that is currently where we are. So let me know if you guys are able to access the site. Yeah, I'm just looking through some of the comments. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask me. I mean, clearly one of the things we talk about is the, yes, please go ahead and give the video a thumbs up if you guys like the content. And also subscribe to the channel if you're not currently subscribed. But this 20-week moving average, so this is something we're gonna want to hold as our support line. And whether it happens now is largely irrelevant. It more so matters how you react to it. So let's pull up the BLX really quick, because I want to show people, if you haven't seen it before. I have the halvings marked on this page with yellow lines. So if you look here, going into the first halving, the price of Bitcoin had already rallied above the 20-week moving average. So we were already above the 20-week, and we were already holding it as support going into the first halving. So going into the first halving, we were already holding it as support. I'm just looking at some of the questions. Okay, so yeah, going into the first halving, we were holding the 20-week moving average as support. Going into the second halving, we were already holding the 20-week moving average as support. So you can see holding it as support, and then we rallied upwards and then dumped into the halving, going back down to the 20-week moving average. And remember, even during a bull market, you're going to see these dumps. This was a 20% drop to the halving. Here we have another 25% drop to the halving, or not to the halving, to the 20-week moving average. A 39% drop to the 20-week moving average, a 37% drop to the 20-week moving average. So these things, are just par for the course in crypto. We're going to see many of these over the course of the next several years, I imagine. At some point, I think we will go into this bull run, whether it's now or if it starts in, say, 6 or 12 months, it doesn't really matter. But even while we're in the run, we're going to see several of these dumps. So don't be surprised if you were to see something like that. And if you see candles closing below it, like over here, this is your signal, usually, historically speaking, to move out of the market, at least in the short term. So if you look at present day, what happened? Just like in the past, we were above the 20-week moving average going into the halving. And each time we dumped after the halving from prior market cycles, the 20-week moving average held as support. Now, clearly that doesn't mean it's going to hold as support this time. For all we know, it's going to kick the can down the road, and maybe we'll hold it as support later on. But if you look at these past market cycles, people were very skeptical here, because back in June of 2016, we saw a dump again from around 25% over the course of a couple of months. And currently we're looking at a dump of around 15%, still north of the halving. Now, if we were to go below the 20-week moving average, then as we have pointed out before, this is historically a good time to consolidate your positions. If you're holding, say, a ton of altcoins, whatever it might be, these typically, but not always, perform a lot worse during the time that Bitcoin is below the 20-week moving average. And altcoins tend to perform better when Bitcoin is above the 20-week moving average. That does not mean they perform necessarily better with respect to Bitcoin, but in terms of, say, their fiat position, they often perform better. Ethereum has often, or at least in the last market cycle, tended to perform better than Bitcoin when Bitcoin was above its 20-week moving average. So that is just another thing to think about. So the support line that I'm looking at is around $8,000. You can see that it is 79.71 is the current 20-week moving average. Now let's go back to another chart so you can actually see more of an updated price. Again, we're looking at $8,400 for the price of Bitcoin. And if for those new viewers, according to our primary regression band fit to non-bubble data, it's right around $8,300, which is what we would expect according to past halvings. This is where we would expect the price to be. So do we have any questions in the chat? Someone said, problem is this is the first halving in which we're in a bear market. Yeah, so in terms of being in a bear market, by definition, for me, it's somewhat arbitrary, but for me, being above the 20-week moving average is at least it's a prerequisite. It's necessary, but not sufficient for a bull market to begin. So this could be, so we know that if a bull market comes, it has to start somewhere. It has to start somewhere. There would have to be some level of confidence that occurs at some point during the market cycle. You can see that in the last bear market, let me remove some of these so you can better see this. During the last bear market, you can see that this support at the 20-week moving average came in February of 2016. And you could have argued that at the time, people were seeing this move down, expecting it to drop all the way back down to a couple $100, but it did. It kept moving up, and then it moved up again, up to $700, $800, and then it dumped again, and people expected it to keep dumping, but it didn't. It stayed again at the 20-week moving average. It continued to hold support on that line, it came up again, it started to correct. People expected it to drop back down to a couple $100s, but it didn't. It stayed at the 20-week moving average. Again, it continued to move up to $3,000. It dumped to the 20-week moving average of 2,000. People expected it to drop further, to crash, but it did. It kept going up. This cycle continued to repeat until finally, at some point, there was a speculative bubble peak here. There was a blow off top to the market where, essentially everyone and their mom was buying Bitcoin, and then we came below the 20-week moving average. So we finally broke below it, and that was our bear market. The question, right, is this, if we look at, let's go back to the BLX. The question is if this right here is the first time we're going to hold the 20-week moving average as support. Let's see what else we have here in the chat. Yeah, so I don't think there's really any questions that I need to respond to there. But let me know if you guys have any questions, and I can try to answer those. We're currently looking at around 28 minutes approximately until the halving. So again, this is really the start of a new era for Bitcoin, because once we drop, we're going from 12.5 coins per block down to 6.25, and this is historic in a sense, because theoretically speaking, if all miners, if all people are selling their Bitcoins that are mining them, then they're going to have less Bitcoin to sell. Therefore, theoretically reduces the sell pressure, and then for the same demand, the price must go up. Now, in the short term, I don't actually think this is going to have a huge effect, but over the long term, over the next 24 to 36 months, I think this is going to really help be the catalyst for a new bull market, amongst some other things as well going on in the cryptocurrency space. Let's see, do we have any questions? Let me scroll up through the chat here. So let me know if you guys want to see something specific. Right now, we're just waiting for the halving, talking about the fair valuation of the price of Bitcoin at the halving, talking about the 20-week moving average, how you can manage your positions in terms of just in terms of looking at how you look into consolidating either above or below that 20-week moving average with regards to other cryptos, not just Bitcoin. So how many? Let's see. We have not too much longer. 27 minutes approximately. Obviously, it depends on how long it takes them to find these blocks, but it's going to be happening fairly soon. And if you guys want to follow along with this chart, it does live update on the website. Just go to, I'll link it in the comments here again. So it's just intothecryptocharts.com. And one of the things that people often say is, well, if it dumped last halving, it has to dump this halving. It may or may not. If you look at prior halvings, after the first halving, it didn't dump. It went parabolic. After the second halving, it certainly dumped in the short term, but it wasn't that long before it went parabolic. So if your time frame in terms of it dumping are just a few days, then of course, yes, it could dump. Maybe we come back to the lower part of the regression line, which would probably be around $5,500 to $6,000. This would correspond to the 200-week moving average. Obviously, that's on the cards. But if you're looking at this long haul here, in terms of getting in now at around $8,400, the fair valuation by January of 2022, if we continue on this pattern, is going to be $20,000. And this is what's going to, I think, be the catalyst to move up back to the six figure mark. Yeah, everyone, if you would, please like this, give the video a thumbs up if you guys like the content. Yeah, so someone asked me, what's your opinion on the next 5 years? So the next 5 years, I think that, so let me go through it, I guess, systematically. So 2020, I think more than likely we're going to be range bound between 5,500 to maybe 14K. So it seems likely that that's going to be the case. Obviously, that could be wrong. But in the short term, between say 5,500 up to 14K is likely where we're going to be trading, because if you look at the primary regression band and just scroll it up through the end of 2020, you can see that essentially our highest point there is around say 12 to 13,000, and I think ultimately we're going to be in this range for the duration of the year. Going into 2021, maybe we'll start picking up steam. We'll break hopefully 14,000. This is just speculation, guys. This isn't, I don't actually know what's going to happen. But breaking through 14,000 by the end of 2021 to 2022, beginning of 2022, hopefully at the latest, quarter one of 2022, getting to our previous all-time high of around $20,000. This is likely when you'll see a lot of other coins start to move, at least the ones that haven't died off yet. Sorry, some of the comments in the chat are funny. And then, continuing on, we see that once we get to 2022, our fair valuation continues going up. It's obviously a monotonically increasing function. And then going into 2023, so the fair valuation in 2023 will be 30,000. But at this point, I think we're going to be at another speculative bubble, likely coming up to around 100K. It could go as high as 200K. If I had to guess, if I just said, okay, I think this is what it's going to do, I would say between 100 to 200K, probably closer to 100K than it would be to 200K. And then peaking summer, sometime in 2023, and then retracing into 2024, seeing a maybe a 50 to 60% correction down to $50,000 in 2024, but ultimately the next halving will help curtail the effects of that bear market, because we've already, if you've watched the channel, we know that annualized volatility is decreasing over the long haul. So if annualized volatility is decreasing, then it would also mean that the drops are also likely to be decreasing. So this is something to consider. So not only the moves up would be, not only would we see diminishing ROIs, but we would also see, losses that aren't quite as bad in a sense. So going into 2024, the halving will help curb the effects of the bull market. 2025, 2026, and 2027 are going to be a contraction phase where, the price isn't going to be doing a whole lot of anything spectacular. And then ultimately it will be the 2028 halving, or whenever it occurs. It might, sometime around that time frame. So not the 2024 halving, but the one after it. That is the halving, I think, that will then catalyze the next bull market after the current one. So that would take us out to say a cycle peak at around 2031 or 2032. So I know that goes against what a lot of people think in terms of people believing in the 4-year cycle, but I don't think the 4-year cycle is even remotely going to be correct, and it's only going to take another, the evidence already suggests that it's not happening, considering how far along we are in the market cycle already. And we're not as bullish as we have in cycles past. But going into this halving, I see us just basically being range bound, below 14,000 for the remainder of the year. But I could be wrong, and if I am wrong, then at least we're prepared. We're prepared to take on whatever happens. And it's always important to remember that anyone's speculation is nothing more than speculation. It's important to have models to try to use to take advantage of speculative bubbles whenever they occur. Even say the one in 2019, to take advantage of this and to really dollar cost average your sells so that you can take profits throughout the market cycle. All right, guys, we're down to 20 minutes. Any other questions? Yep, so we're about 3 blocks away. Someone said it's time to get a haircut. I agree with you, but we're in the middle of a pandemic, so it's kind of hard to do that. Someone said, what are the odds we completely underestimate this cycle and prices pump to 500 to a million? I think the odds of that are negligibly small. I think that the odds of that are so low that it's not even worth considering that, because if you get in your head that we're going to $1 million in this cycle, then what's more than likely going to happen is you're not gonna be selling when we get to 100,000. You're going to be assuming that price is going to go up another 10x, and this is how you ultimately watch your portfolio go up 10 to 15x, and then you just watch it come crashing back down. So it's like all that hard work you put in during 2018 and 2019, 2020, 2021 to accumulate your Bitcoin, you watch the price skyrocket, and then you just watched it come, back down. Maybe you're still ahead because if your average buy was, say, around $10,000, and then the fair valuation later on is $30,000, then you're still at 3x. But I imagine most people aren't here for a 3x. Most people are here for a 10x, or somewhere around there. I mean, some of you are probably looking for more, but this is something. Let's see what other questions. Someone says, this is a fair question, so I want to answer this question because I get it a lot. Someone said, if we hit 20,000 this year, does it invalidate the lengthening cycle theory? So that was from Mike Edwards. So that was a good question, Mike. So the reason I don't think it invalidates, so the lengthening cycle theory will prove to be incorrect if we see this new paradigm shift in the price of Bitcoin in 2021 or 2020. If you see Bitcoin going to, say, 6 figures in 2020 or 2021, then yes, lengthening cycle theory is wrong. If you see it further out, I think the earliest that it could happen to see $100,000 Bitcoin and lengthening cycle theories to still have merit would be Q4 of 2022. That's the earliest, and the likelihood of Q4 of 2022 is fairly small, but I still think it's somewhat possible. Where summer of 2023 being more likely, and then maybe early 2024 being less likely, but still possible in terms of the lengthening cycle theory. If we get to $20,000 this year, then that's essentially, it doesn't necessarily mean that lengthening cycles are wrong, because it depends on what happens after that. If we go to 20,000 and then ultimately retrace right back into the primary regression band for another year, then clearly it was just, say, a mini bubble on the way up to 100K. For instance, if you had asked me that question, a year ago, Bitcoin rallied up to $14,000. And at this point, a lot of people were already saying, it's already going up to 100K now. Kind of similar to maybe this move where we had a peak and then a retracement and then a second peak. So you can imagine a peak and then a longer retracement here, and then say a second peak up again. Certainly a lot of people thought that was a possibility, and it certainly would not have fit with lengthening cycles. So if you see us go up to 20K, it's not me trying to say that it's still, lengthening cycles I think can still be true. It matters on what happens after we get to 20K. If you see us retrace back into the regression band, then lengthening cycle theory is still on. If you see a move to 20K and then we break out to, say, 30 to 40 to 50K in 2021, then it becomes harder to make the case that lengthening cycle theories are true in that event. So I hope this answers your question. And let me know if it did not. But that was from a question from Mike Edwards. Let's check on where we are. So we only have a couple more blocks to go, around 15 more minutes. Yeah, 3 blocks to go. So there could be some discrepancies between, say, timeframes looking at different websites, because it ultimately depends on how long it takes people to find blocks, and that could vary. between, or at least say, one website's interpretation of a countdown could vary between, say, another website's interpretation of what the countdown should be. So someone said, what was the risk level at the $14,000 mark last year? 0.7. Yes, it was 0.7. So it went through the 0.6 risk band and then peaked out just above 0.7. So this would have corresponded to people taking profits during that time if you had wanted to follow the risk model that I have. And by the way, if you guys are interested in joining, I do have intothecryptoverse.com, so check out this website. It provides a weekly newsletter report, and I put out all these different data science models. We talked about the best day to buy Bitcoin. In this last newsletter, we talked about the best day to buy Ethereum. And this is just based on historical data, so it's just little tidbits of knowledge that you can use to improve how you're accumulating various coins. And we go through the risk model, we go through various logarithmic regression models. And I do want to say one thing, because this is something that has come up recently. We have a private Telegram chat room for those who want to join the premium list. We have almost 200 people in the private chat room, and I really cherish this chat room because of how the quality conversations that go on there. But I also recognize that it can't continue. The Telegram channel, the private one, cannot continue to grow unchecked, because then ultimately it just becomes it ultimately becomes really not a whole lot different than say a public chat room, and then it becomes hard to keep up with everything. You check in at the end of the day and there's like another 400 messages. This isn't really as useful to people. So because of that, the private Telegram chat room, I believe, is going to be capped at around 250 people. So if you want to be part of that chat room for the next market cycle, then I would encourage you to join soon, because I'm going to be removing that as the chat room will still exist, but it's just going to become a quiet, it's not going to be advertised anymore. It's going to be kind of like a black hole. We're going to just kind of disappear, and we're going to exist for the people who joined early on, but we're not going to, necessarily be inviting a lot of new members to the group anymore. And that's basically just so we can have a smaller, cohesive group to go into the next market cycle, and we're not bringing in, say, a lot of dumb money in 2023 that are then flooding that chat room with stuff that is completely irrelevant. The point is to get people in now so that you can benefit from the move over the next several years. This is the goal. Still a few blocks left. Someone said, "Where are we on the risk chart?" I normally don't tell people that, generally speaking, just because it is one of the premium features that I provide. We have a Google Sheet document for those who sign up and follow along. But just because in the spirit of the halving, the risk right now for Bitcoin is around 0.36. But if you want updated analysis on that and being able to access it live, then you'll need to sign up or just wait. I publish a video on it every couple months as well. Again, if you're just joining, we're looking at the primary regression band, the fair value of around $8,300 to $8,400, which seems to be lining up with what the price of Bitcoin is doing at the present time. And guys, people are asking about the price. There's probably going to be a lot of volatility in the short term. So if you're really worried about things, you need to consider that in terms of your own risk management, because I can't tell you what the price is going to do in the short term. For me, I'm mainly looking at this 20-week moving average. If we can hold that as support, then this is something we need to do at some point during the market cycle. If we can start doing it now, then great. If we fall below it, then consider that as an opportunity to accumulate more Bitcoin and to grow your position so that in 2023 you can, your ROI will be higher. You want to reduce your entry level on your risk, your weighted risk, and the way you can do that is by purchasing when you see these huge candles. So if you see something like that occur again, don't let it scare you off. Don't be the person that capitulates at the very bottom. Okay, this is dumb money here. And again, the smart money, it's all about moving into the market at opportune times, and it's hard identifying that, which is why the risk metric allows you to identify times to get in, because at this point down here the risk was around 0.12. You just look at the numbers and you stick to them. You don't worry about price. The model takes all that into account for you. Let's see, what other questions do we have? So we have around another 9 minutes or so. Obviously, it depends on exactly when the blocks are found. Yeah, no one's really controlling the countdown per se. I mean, this is just an estimation as to when it occurs. It's approximately 10 minutes from now, but obviously this is subject to change based on how long the blocks take to find. Someone said, is there a difference between your monthly subscription versus Patreon? No, there's not, but I would encourage you just to use the website, because it's easier for me to control. It's easier for me to control than Patreon. Alright guys, we're getting closer. Price is still sitting around that fair valuation point. I tried refreshing the page, but then it's not doing anything right now. Let's delete all this. Okay, there we go. Ha! So it's back up in 29 minutes. Let me know if you guys have any more questions. We're going to be, again, following this until we hit the halving. Someone said the microphone is worse than usual today. I'm not really sure why it would be. Oh, you know what it is? It's probably because I have the AC on, actually. That's why. Still another 3 blocks. Again, someone asked what is the current risk analysis for Bitcoin right now. Again, in the spirit of a halving, I'll tell you it's 0.36 approximately. So if you are dynamically dollar cost averaging your buys, then you would want to take this into consideration. So Young Smoky is asking how I calculated the logarithmic regression band. So I talked about it earlier, but for those just joining, if you're interested in creating your own regression band, I think that is a useful exercise for everyone to do. So what I did was, so the first thing you'll notice is that if you take the entire price history and try to fit it to a single equation, it's going to be hard to do this. Mainly because the price, you have these speculative bubbles that it's hard to fit data to, or it's hard to fit, say, a single model to. And someone, I'm not going to mention names, but someone a few months ago basically said that there's no correlation between the price of Bitcoin on a log scale in terms of it going up exponentially, because they looked at all sorts of statistical models and showed that there is no strong correlation. The issue I have with that is they're using this irrational time to predict, or to look at some statistical significance in the price of Bitcoin. So what I did was I removed these bubbles. I don't fit the bubbles. You just fit the data within that's not in a bubble phase, because this is the rational fair value of Bitcoin. These right here, these peaks, this is the dumb money coming in. This is irrational. This doesn't mean anything. This is why you should not use, a speculative bubble to necessarily identify much of anything. It's often ridiculous to measure the return of an asset based on what it was worth at the previous all-time high, because you're measuring it based on an irrational time in the market, and it's a somewhat arbitrary point. I mean, it was only at that price for a day or two at the most. Let's see, what other questions do we have? Okay, it looks like we have another block mined. Yeah, and if the next one does take, if it takes an hour or two, then I'll probably just have to go off before we get it. Someone said, does anyone know how the last two halvings survived? I'm not exactly sure what you mean, but if you look at the chart I have here, the dashed lines are showing when the halving occurred. So after the first halving, we saw an immediate parabolic move. After the second halving, we saw a correction of 20 to 30%, followed by some sideways action for a year, and then a parabolic move. And then in this current halving, I think we're mostly going to go sideways between, say, $5,500 to $14,000 for at least the next year, going up to around $20,000 by the end of 2021 or the beginning of 2022, and then going off to $100,000 by 2023, 2024 at the latest. Someone said, hey, keep up the great content, Thinking Crypto, appreciate it. Someone said, I bought $6,000 worth of XRP at $325 because CNBC said so. What should I do? My first recommendation is to not listen to what CNBC says to do, because again, in the current market cycle, you're going to see a lot of dumb money come in a couple years, and you want to stay resolute with how you think the market is going to perform. Don't FOMO into the market, But this is not financial advice, but I would not suggest FOMOing into the market when Bitcoin is at $100,000 and you see a lot of altcoins booming. I mean, that's gambling. You can go gambling if you want to. I mean, that's based on your own risk tolerance. If you want to do that, that's fine. But right now, I'm primarily looking at Bitcoin, Ethereum, especially holding Ethereum when Bitcoin is above the 20-week moving average. And there's a few other coins, that I hold. I don't like to talk about all of them because I don't want to come off as, like, say, a shill for a very specific coin, because I don't want to, I just don't want to do that. So primarily I hold Bitcoin and Ethereum. There are other coins that I hold. You can probably get an idea of some of the coins I hold just based off some of the videos that I make, but there are several coins that I hold that I haven't made videos on. So, at the end of the day, you need to just, I would say, figure out the projects that you believe in, that you think are going to provide real world utility to in the blockchain space, and go with those projects, because I can't tell you what your risk tolerance should be on all these different coins. What I can tell you is that at some point in the next few years, Bitcoin is probably going to make a run to $20,000, and the rest of the market is likely going to sit still, and it's going to watch what happens. It's kind of similar to what we've seen the last few weeks. Bitcoin, it made a run to $10,000, and what happened with the rest of the market? The rest of the market mostly sat still, because Bitcoin is the market mover. If you have 90% of your value in alts, your portfolio in alts, then personally I think you're doing something wrong, because if let's say in 3 years there's $100,000 Bitcoin, if Bitcoin is doing well, it does not mean that the rest of the market did well. But if the rest of the market does well, then you can rest assured that Bitcoin almost assuredly did well. So Bitcoin is the market mover. At some point, it's going to make a move to $20,000, and the rest of the market is going to sit and watch that move, and you don't want to miss out on it. Once that move occurs, the rest of the market may play catch up. And then again, later on, there's going to be a move from, say, like 50 to 60,000 up to 100, 120, 140,000 or something. And again, you don't want to miss that move. Would you rather be sitting in altcoins waiting for them to boom one day? Or would you rather make sure you hit that move in Bitcoin so that you have more to, turn back to your savings, that can then better your life, and then you maybe take a small portion of that, and then you can go altcoin gambling if you choose to. But this is a lot of people treat this as a joke and as just like a meme. But in general, we're talking about serious money here. A lot of money can be made, a lot of money can be lost, and Bitcoin is the market mover, and it's why I do today, and I will always hold the majority of my portfolio in Bitcoin. The only time that might not happen is if on a given day, if I hold a few different coins and they all go up 10x in one day, then of course maybe the balance changes in the short term. But rest assured, I'm quickly correcting it. It's not something that I'm just going to sit on. It's important to learn to take profits and stay resolute in the market, because if you haven't been here for long enough, you know what goes up this quickly must come down. If it goes up this quickly, it must come down. Again, if it goes up this quickly, it must come down. More than likely, it's going to go up again. It's going to go up quickly. Bitcoin's going to be at $10,000. It's going to, maybe it drops to 8,000, then it recovers back to 10,000, then back to 9,000. The memes come out saying that Bitcoin's going, it's over 9,000 again. It's going to happen, maybe it'll happen 4 more times. It gets to 10,000, we get to 10.5, it gets rejected, we break through, we get to 12,000, we get to 14,000, our local all-time high, or not our all-time high, our local high, gets rejected from 14, it comes back down to 13. Again, your local neighborhood bear is yelling, see, I told you so, we're going back to 1,800. We don't go back to 1,800, we hold the 20-week moving average as support at some point. These people that are saying 1,800, they just start screaming it louder. Oh, you see, I told you so, we're retracing, just come follow me, we're dropping. Then Bitcoin goes to 16K, it quickly goes to 18K, then 20K. Then all these people are sitting on the sidelines waiting for that $1,800 Bitcoin, and they're like, oh, what was I doing? Like, I had years to get in at $3,000, $4,000, and $5,000, and instead of taking this, instead of doing this and taking advantage of these moves when Bitcoin retraced 85%, I was too greedy and I was wanting $1,800 Bitcoin. And this is what happens. And then we get to $20,000 and these people FOMO back into the market. And then ultimately you see news channels start covering it. We get to 20,000, we get to 25,000, 30,000, maybe we get to 40,000, we retrace back to 20,000, and then people say, okay, the bull market's over. But again, we hold the 20-week moving average as support. We continue to build off that moving average. We hold it as support for a few months, and we have another bubble. We go up to say 50 or 60,000. We retrace back to 40,000. It happens again. Maybe we drop again, and people are saying, all right, that's it. We're going back down. The new paradigm shift was $50,000 Bitcoin. Now we're going to go back down to $10,000 tomorrow, and then it doesn't. And then it goes to 100,000, and then the news starts covering it. Your grandma wants to know how she can buy. Your parents are asking how they can pull money out of their 401k to invest in Bitcoin. Your friend down the street is asking, he wants to sell his house so that he can purchase Bitcoin with it. This is likely to happen. And then people are taking out loans. We have decentralized finance. People are able to get loans that, I'm a big supporter of decentralized finance, don't get me wrong, but there's going to be a lot of people that make a lot of dumb choices because of it, because they're going to be able to get loans they probably wouldn't get otherwise. They're going to leverage too much of their position. They're going to get liquidated. It's going to ultimately lead, it's going to push the bubble higher than it should go. And then there's going to be quiet. It's going to come crashing back down. These people that leveraged everything, they're going to lose it all. It's likely going to go, up to 6 figures. People are going to be screaming, it's going to 400,000, it's going to 500, it's going to 1 million. We're at the dawn of a new era of Bitcoin. It's, fiat money is going to be useless. And then there's going to be a day. And, in a few years, there's going to be a day. And what's going to happen is Bitcoin is going to drop by 50 or 60% in that day. It's going to drop below the 20-week moving average. When it does that, people are going to be, they're going to be, what's the word I'm looking for? They're going to be in denial. Okay? We've been going up for 3 years. How could it possibly retrace? Oh, this is a healthy correction. This is healthy. This is needed. We're just shaking out the weak hands. The memes start coming out to hold your Bitcoin. Only the weak hands are selling. You see it pump back up. They say, I told you so. Your local neighborhood bull is saying, see, I told you so. We're going back. We're going to 200,000. We're going to 300,000. But it doesn't. It doesn't even make it back to 6 figures. and then it starts to go back down. And then people are in denial. They take out positions they can't afford to take. These get liquidated. We drop back down to 60,000. We drop back down to 50,000. Maybe we bottom at 30 to 40,000. These are where people capitulate. And then we see a move back up to 50,000. And then after all this is said and done over the next several years, and you can imagine, say 4 or 5 years from now, and by the way, if I'm missing the halving here because I'm just rambling on, let me know. But this is what I think is going to happen, guys. You know, we're going to retrace, and this is the key thing. If you think that it's only going to go up, it's not true. It's going to retrace. We're going to come back down. 30,000 could be the bottom. I think somewhere between 30 to 50,000 will be the bottom of the next market cycle out in 2024, 2025 timeframe, and then, you know, these people that are buying out in 2025 and 2026, they're going to have a long time to wait to see that potential 3 to 5x. And then, you know, after you see this speculative bubble occur, you know, we're going to continue to reduce our annualized volatility. Cycles are going to lengthen. You're just not going to be able to turn the same profit unless you're leverage trading. You're looking at futures. You're going, you know, you're trading at, say, 10x margin or something, which I don't suggest you do. But this is the name of the game. And then what happens? The cycle repeats again, but it's going to take longer. The next time it occurs, it'll probably be out 2030 at the earliest. Bitcoin will get back to 100,000 at some point, maybe by 2030, and then it gets to, you know, 150 to 200 to 300 to 400. Maybe it gets to 500, and people say it's going to 1 million, but it doesn't. It drops back. It drops back down to 200,000. It drops back down to, you know, maybe 150,000. And then the same thing happens again. And then after that, over the course of the next decade, so 10 years probably, Bitcoin will slowly make its way back up to 100, or back to or go up to $1 million if the math is correct. And believe me, guys, this is just pure speculation based off what I think the math suggests now. Clearly, it's not taking into account a lot of fundamental aspects that you might otherwise want to take into account. But just if the cycles continue to repeat in the same manner, this is what I see happening. And then it gets to $1 million by, you know, 2040. Annualized volatility is 1%, which means the price of Bitcoin can vary by as much as around $10,000 in a single year. No one spends it on peer-to-peer transactions, most likely, because who's going to spend their Bitcoin when they are thinking it's going to go up, you know, 20% tomorrow? I mean, it probably won't, but who's going to do it? The future of peer-to-peer currency is not Bitcoin. I don't think it's stable coin. It's something that's going to, you know, it's going to stay. You can't run an economy off something that people think is going to be worth more tomorrow than it is today, because it doesn't encourage spending. And you want to encourage spending by ensuring that it's not worth more tomorrow than it is today. Then it encourages spending, and this is what you need to run an economy. So I have not looked at the comments in a while. Sorry if I've missed the halving. I don't think I have. Let's go ahead and reload this to see if it's updated. So I hope you guys enjoyed that little spiel there. So has the halving already occurred? See, this is what happens when I just go off on a ramble. Whew. And let's see, where is Bitcoin right now? Oh, it's at $8,500. All right, guys, happy halving, everyone. By the way, I'm going to take this time to point out, it is not halvening. It is halving. It's not halvening. I don't know why people say this. It's like a misnomer. It's not halvening. It's the halving. All right, so let's mark it down now. So the price of Bitcoin at the halving is $85.73, approximately. The value on the primary regression band is, let's see, 8,300 or so, 83 to 8,400. So within a very small percentage. This is I mean, to me, this is just quite remarkable. So again, the fair valuation in the next market cycle at the halving will likely be around $40,000 or so. So remember, if you look at the macro scale, the price at the first halving was $12, second halving was $650, third halving is around $8,400. The next halving will probably be around $40,000. So if you're looking at the macro scale, which is what you should be looking at, this is should help you stay resolute. And I would expect some volatility here in the short term with Bitcoin over the next several days. I imagine we're maybe we're going to test the 20-week moving average again. And if you see us fall below it, then for me, I'll be consolidating my positions. You don't want to be holding 37 different altcoins during a time like that, I can assure you. And this is based on tons of historical evidence. Holding alts below the 20-week moving average, for the most part, does not work out. Obviously, there's a few coins that it would have worked out for in the last market cycle, but in general, this is not something you want to do. And if you go back and look at the chart, do you guys just want to stay on the live stream for another 1,458 days until the next halving? We could do that, another 1,458 days. I'll remind you that if you guys like the content, if you like the more of like the data science approach that I take to things, and by the way, guys, if you guys go to this website, I'll link it again in the description into the cryptocharts.com. You can see we also have this other rainbow chart here. So this is the one I talk about in terms of dropping down 2.5 log lines each cycle. So the next one being dropping down from this point down to this point out in 2023 at just over $100,000. So I'll let you look at that chart to confirm that it's dropping around 2.5 log lines each time. And again, if you guys want, I'm wanting, I have this community of people that follow the risk metric, they follow the regression equations, they follow the newsletters that I put out that give you guys, tidbits of information every single week that you can use to improve your own portfolio management in terms of like what's the best day to buy Bitcoin, what's the best day to buy Ethereum. We look at risk management in terms of dynamically dollar cost averaging. We look at a lot of other things. Probably be talking about taxes soon as well. If you guys want access to that, just check out my other website, which is intothecryptoverse.com, and you can get access to it. And one of the perks that comes with a subscription here is access to a private Telegram group that is currently sitting at around 180 members. I'm going to cap that, I think, at 250. So if you want access to that group, that perk is going to be disappearing soon. It's just because I want a community that we can have now, that we can really grow together through the market cycle, and it's not something that a lot of dumb money is pouring in and people are pouring into the group that really shouldn't be there because they're just going to be creating a lot of noise, say in 2022, 2023. So at 250, I think that group is going to kind of quietly just disappear. Like, it's going to exist and we're going to have great conversations there, but it's not going to be a perk anymore. It's just going to be something that the people who got in early are going to be a part of, and it'll just be my own private community with people. So if you want to join that, it'll be closing up soon. Just get access to the premium list now. It's $49 a month, or you can pay with cryptocurrency for 6 or 12 months. And if you are joining, then I will see you over there in a little bit. If not, if you end up joining later, then you probably won't get an invite to that channel, just because it will close up, so that we can keep the quality at the highest standard as possible. I don't want it getting 1,000 to 2,000 members, just because it becomes unsustainable at that point. And then also check out the public Telegram group. So the public Telegram group you can find in the description of this video, I believe. If someone wants to link that in the chat, please. If you could link the public Telegram group, that'd be great. Let's see what's the price doing, because I see people talking about it. Oh, it's not really doing a whole lot. It's still at 8,400. This is still around the fair valuation of Bitcoin at this time. So Let's see, do we have any more questions? I mean, the price is still, it's not really doing a whole lot at this point. Still around 8,400. Remember, the 20-week is where we want to watch. Just check out the websites. I've linked you guys if you guys want access to the premium content, or if you just want to follow along here, you can go to this website and follow along on this regression band. I think it's pretty powerful in the over the next few years of identifying when we're in a short-term speculative bubble and when we're not. And if you see us come down to the bottom of the band like we did earlier this year, consider this. I would personally consider this as an opportunity. All right, guys. Well, again, I wanted to wish everyone a happy Bitcoin halving. This is, again, a truly remarkable event in our lives. We're starting the new era of Bitcoin. If you were here before 2020, you can say I was part of Bitcoin before the 2020 halving. As I said earlier, that's going to carry a significant amount of weight to people in 10, 15 years, because most people, I mean, think about it. How many of your friends and family are in Bitcoin or in cryptocurrency? They just think it's a fad. Well, I think it's here to stay. So congratulations for those who were here beforehand. Someone said lower band equal buy of a lifetime. Yeah, I mean, at least the history would support that statement. For instance, buying here, buying in this region, buying here, buying over here. It's, historically speaking, it's hard to get much better than that. Someone said, do you use a ledger? Yes, I do. So if you're curious about a wallet, I personally use the Nano Ledger. I don't, just so you guys know, so that you can trust my opinion, and that I'm not trying to just say something that I don't believe in. I'm not posting referral codes or anything like that. If so go if you want. Go to the website though. If you go to the website, the Ledger website, you're going to want to make sure you do it at the website and not through a third party, because even if you have to pay more for it through the website, it's worth not having the headache of what if someone tampered with your private keys. So I would recommend doing it through the website and not anywhere else. But personally, I do use a Nano Ledger. Yeah, someone said, where's the lower band? It's around 5 to 6K or so. Someone said, do you have in-depth coverage on ADA for your premium stuff? So actually, I do have the risk metric for ADA. So if you want to follow along there, and actually, for those people who like ADA, if you like Cardano, there actually is someone in our group named Ryan who is pretty fairly well versed in Cardano, and he's put together a whole Google Sheet document to help everyone out. So we do actually have a decent number of people in the group that are following Cardano and ADA. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea. Our primary focus is on Bitcoin. Our secondary focus is on Ethereum. But there are a few other coins in there that we do talk about sometimes. But primarily it's Bitcoin and Ethereum with a few other coins sprinkled in. Someone said, how long historically is altcoin season after Bitcoin peaks? A lot of people will live through altcoin season that only lasts maybe a few weeks to a few months tops, and then before a retracement with respect to Bitcoin. These gains that you might see in some of these coins, now a lot of these coins will never see their prior all-time high. It's just likely not going to happen. But if it does happen for some of the coins you hold, then you have to remember that these gains that you might see are not sustainable in the short term. They're just not. So consider that most gains that come from altcoins only occur during a few days of the year. If you're sitting out of the market on those days, then you might miss them. And I think those days correspond to certain milestones with Bitcoin. So again, my primary holding is Bitcoin by far, and second would be Ethereum. Someone said about yeah, it looks like we have some link marines here. I have covered Chainlink some in the on my channel. Someone said Ethereum versus Ethereum-based token. I mean, personally, I'm put it this way: $1,000 investment in Ethereum in November of 2015 would have resulted in a valuation of 1.5 million in January of 2018. Now, I mean, that's over 1,000x ROI. So, I mean, if you think about things in terms of that, it's hard not to be bullish on Ethereum, just because I think that it is basically one of the backbones of cryptocurrency, leading the charge with decentralized finance. If someone's creating their own token, it's more than likely on the Ethereum blockchain. So again, I'm more bullish on Ethereum than I would be on any other coins. Not that other coins won't have a better ROI. I'm sure there will be coins that have a better ROI than Ethereum, but in terms of managing your risk, maybe you invest in 20 different ERC20s that maybe one or two of them perform better than Ethereum, but you have to consider, well, if you had just put all that money into Ethereum, would you have done better? And I don't know the answer to that. I mean, certainly Link is a coin that has performed better than most every other coin during the last 2 years. So, if you want to go altcoin hunting, just make sure it's within your own risk tolerance, because a lot of these coins are not going to see their previous all-time high. I mean, this is a misconception in crypto that all these coins just have to go back to their all-time high. There are a lot of coins in 2017 that didn't do anything, and they had a blow-off top in 2013. A lot of coins won't recover. A lot of coins will die. It's just the cold hard truth. A lot of people don't want to accept it. Look at their valuations with respect to Bitcoin. If their valuations with respect to Bitcoin are just constantly going down over the last several years, then, I mean, these are coins that I personally have no interest, in holding. If you see them spike at certain times, like Ethereum spikes, at key milestones with Bitcoin. Other coins do this as well, where they trend down for a while, but then they tend to spike up when the market gets bullish. These are coins I would prefer to hold, not coins that just constantly go down in Bitcoin value. Someone said, what's that annoying sound? I think it's just the air conditioning, and I don't really feel like getting up to turn it off, to be completely honest. Alright guys, we're still at $8,500. We've been doing the stream for a while now. Go ahead and give the video a thumbs up if you guys like the content. Please let people know about the channel. I think we just hit over 19,000 subscribers today, or maybe it was yesterday. But I'm trying to race Bitcoin. It's a race to 100K. Who will get there first? Will Bitcoin get to 100K first, or will my channel get to 100,000 subscribers first? This is a race I want to see if I can win. Do we have any more questions? Yeah, we've been going for an hour and 13 minutes. You guys don't like the walls? Are they too red? Do you want to see green? Alright guys, so I do see a lot of predictions now going on in the chat, just short-term predictions. Feel free to make those predictions, but no one knows what's going to happen. Most people, I don't think, were saying that when Bitcoin was at $3,800 on in March. I don't think most people would have thought that it would have been at $10,000 in May. So at the end of the day, Bitcoin doesn't really care what you think. Take that into consideration. It's better, I think, to just manage things in terms of risk rather than just always setting specific price points that Bitcoin must head to before something else can happen. I don't think that's my own personal opinion. I don't think that's the right way to go about doing things. Someone said, what is your TradingView username? I do not have one. I don't post this stuff on TradingView. Or at least my own stuff. I don't post on TradingView. I just do it on my own site, either intothecryptocharts.com if you want to see the live graphs. Except this third graph. This is not live. I hope to get it live soon, but it's basically showing the market cycle RLI from market cycle bottom. So you can see we see the diminishing returns in the lengthening cycle. But this is actually should be somewhere out here by now, the fourth cycle. So I'll try to get that updated soon, but it's not currently updated. And then the last chart, I don't think most people are that interested in. It's just looking at tokens traded, and really it shouldn't be tokens. I mean, it was copied over from something else. It's just Bitcoin traded versus price. So just another way to look at data and how we have these clusterings of data points essentially. And remember to check out my website if you want to join the premium list and get access to the private group that will be closing for new members and once we hit around 250 members. So that'll probably happen pretty soon. I think we're currently at around 180 members. So check that out if you're interested. This is probably a good time to go ahead and sign off. I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. I hope it was informative. I hope my rant about what's going to happen over the next few years was maybe entertaining for some people, but we'll see what happens. We'll come revisit this video in a few years and see how things perform, see if I'm right. If I'm right, then we'll be looking for a cycle peak no earlier than Q4 of 2022 and no later than probably the middle of the year 2024, if I'm right. If I'm wrong, then we'll see a peak maybe in 2021, but obviously I don't think I'm wrong. But at least we'll all be here we'll be here regardless of what happens to identify if a speculative bubble is occurring. Whenever it does happen, we will be ready for it. So subscribe to the channel, turn your notifications on, like the video, leave a comment, and I will see you guys next time.